is what they gave him. So
All right. So there was a little bit of question, man. Talking about the technical difficulties. There was some question on whether we were actually broadcasting out there for a second, bud. So I'm gonna just back up just a little bit. I know that some people might have missed the beginning of our program and all our hellos and our banter, but just to kind of get people up to speed. What we're hitting tonight is offensive line, some of the battles that we're getting into, and with that being said, I think we've recapped that Garrett Bowles is solidified at right tackle.
left tackle.
I'm sorry, left tackle. See, I'm a little bit technical difficulties, man. It's going to throw you every single time. So
Right. Yep.
yes. Let's not switch him positions. That's not what we need to be doing. There's enough things going on
Enough
along
company.
the
Right.
offensive line, but Garrett Bowles is locked into position. We do have a little bit of concern just because, hey, we're in a different offensive scheme now. It's a wide zone scheme. We have a new quarterback who likes to hold on to the ball, likes to scramble around, looking for plays to develop down the field. And that being said, it might land him back to some of his old ways, right? Some of his old ways where he used to have more and more holds and used to be some drive killers and had Broncos country upset with him from time to time in his past. So we're hoping we don't see a regression because of that. But at the same time, we do think that he's locked into position. And then why don't you just take it away again from there, if you don't mind, buddy? I'm sorry about that.
Um, you've got
Next
four.
position.
Next position. Bull solidified at left tackle. Dalton Rising returning at left guard. Lloyd Cushenberry at center. Graham Glasgow till his injury at right guard. And Bobby Massey at right tackle, who is a free agent. Let's start at left guard. You got Dalton Reisner, your incumbent. Um,
Yeah.
and you got battling against Nayate Moody. Um, little on Dalton Reisner, both stats and what the eye test showed. Started 15 games last year, 832 snaps. There were a handful of games last year that he did not finish the full game, so he's been a little injury prone last year. Only had 2 penalties last year, gave up 4 sacks, and had a 68.5 PFF grade. Um, where he really struggled last year was in pass blocking, in my opinion. He was on his backside a lot last year, and
Yeah.
although only 4 sacks, he gave up a lot of pressures.
Yeah. I agree, man. I agree. Uh, just an update. Matt Staffiero, he's kind of helping us out behind the scenes. All our issues are now fixed. We're live, buddy. We're out there. Broncos country should be seeing us. Hopefully, they tuned in. I apologize everybody for the delay and all the technical difficulties. On top of it, I have a thunderstorms running through, so Jody might be your host if I get knocked out on some internet on top of it. So, all right. Again, welcome Broncos country. Thanks for tuning in. So, you're right. Dalton Reisner, he was probably one of my disappointments, I guess you could say, from last year. I really wanted to see him do well. Wanted to see him take that step. Like as we mentioned a little bit before, here's a guy. He's in his fourth year out of Kansas State, but he's a second round draft pick.
Right.
He's starting in his fourth year. And that's the one thing that I wonder up and down this roster is how much we're going to put into A, where they were drafted, and B, which regime they were drafted under as well, right?
Right.
George Payton has shown that he's not beholden to the guys that were drafted and brought in before he was GM.
Right.
And in fact, there's a little bit of chatter out there. Speaking of all that, trying to get all this information condensed to you, that he's trying to turn into his roster as quickly as possible, and that might make some of these roster battles even more interesting, I guess you could say, at least from a GM perspective.
I agree. Yep.
So,
Um,
I guess in comparison, you got Natani Moody, right? Uh, he'll be starting his third year out of Fresno State, but he's a sixth round pick, right?
Correct.
So, new regime, but we're talking a second rounder versus a sixth rounder. So, what does that look like? And again, how does that play out? And it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see if we see any alliances, I guess you could say. So,
Yeah, I think this is your tightest battle for sure. You got Nayati Moody. He started 3 games last year, 2 at left guard, 1 at right guard, 317 snaps, 0 penalties. He gave up 4 sacks, and like Dalton Reisner, that's where he struggles is in the pass game.
yeah, yeah,
He's a
absolutely.
mauler, and from all reports, he has slimmed down to try to fit into this wide zone scheme a little bit better. And
Yeah.
all reports, he's looked really good in camp. So
If anyone is able
that's
to check a little bit of his press conference time, he was from a physical standpoint. I think he was my most impressive athlete that took the podium. He did look like an impressive guy, and
he's a big Samoan for sure. Yeah.
yeah, he is fantastic. Him and another guy we'll talk about, Quinn Miners as well. So both of those guys are looking pretty good as they head into camp.
Yeah. Moving on to the center position, you got Lloyd Cushenberry back again. I think from the way everything's been going, he's been taking all the snaps with Russell Wilson. He's gotten really comfortable there. Reports are he's been doing really well in the classroom. And I think it's his job to lose right now. They have not really tried to play Glasgow there yet. He's still coming off the ankle injury. So as we get into OTAs, we'll see, or into training camp, excuse me, we'll see how that plays out. And you got the rookie they just drafted, Luke Wattenberg. I think he makes the 53. I don't know that he's ready yet to push Kush for a starting job. I think when we suit up in Seattle week 1, Kush is your starting center.
Yeah, from everything I've seen, it looks like Cushenberry is pretty dialed in. It sounds like him and Russ. And we mentioned this, I believe, in episode 1, but he spent some time out in San Diego pre
Right.
OTA, pre minicamp. Went out to Russell's house, and like he said, he just wanted to get snaps down, get a feel for the snap, get a feel for cadence, get all of that. And he said that he felt that helped him immensely heading into these mini camps and OTAs. So I know that he may not be the most impressive center in the league. I know that he has taken a lot of heat here in Broncos country.
Right.
I just do want to remind everybody that this is going into his third year. Center is one of the most difficult positions on the offensive line. I mean, really, you're a quarterback, but you have to be physical and hit people and take a 350-pound guy just slamming into you at the same time. But you got to go up there and you've got to get your whole line set. You got to be able to identify a defense. You got
Right.
to be able to identify your Mike linebacker. You've got to. I played center in Little League for a little bit of time. I could tell you the amount of times I muffed the snap count. Oh, boy, buddy. Because you got everything going through your mind, and so all of a sudden you have it set in your mind that it's on 2, and dang if it wasn't 1, and there you are sitting there. So, there's just a lot to that position, and everyone talks about, what positions are the most difficult for a rookie to come in and excel. Well, center is definitely one of those positions where they're just like, hey, this is almost impossible. We're only heading into year 3, and I think we need to give him a little bit more credit for where he's at in his tenure.
Yeah, and I think having back in Russell Wilson, he's going to take all the snaps. You don't have Lock 1 week, Flacco, Teddy Bridgewater. You're not bouncing back and forth. That's going to be huge for Lloyd.
Yeah, agreed. And I just think, again, just being in the NFL year 3, kind of feeling that you're in your own. especially at a position that, again, demands so much from the mental
Right.
aspect as well as the physical aspect. I think we could see him do quite well this year within the offense. All signs point to yes as far as him having a good training camp right now.
I agree with that.
I,
Moving
I
on to
will
the
say I will say I do like how big and beastly Luke Wattenberg is. He is a quite a specimen of a
he
man.
is. Yep.
And there's a little bit of a I think there's a possibility that we see him worked out a little bit of guard in training camp, even though he's a center mainly.
Right.
So it might give him I mean, I'll just address this right now. One of the biggest things that Coach Hackett, and I ask all the offensive, whether it be Outen or whomever it happens to be, has really stressed is these guys being fairly interchangeable. The more positions you can learn along the offensive front, the better player you're going to be within this scheme and for this team. He kind of went back to all the injuries that they had at Green Bay, and he was very happy with the way they were able to plug and play and other people into those positions and still keep a formidable team out on the field, which sometimes is very difficult. So I think that's one of the things he's going to be looking for. So
I agree.
just really quick, we got our first one of our first comments coming in, buddy. So center, got to know guard and tackle assignments, and that's exactly right. As a center, I mean, you got to know, again, what the guard needs to be doing, what the tackle needs to be doing. You got to be able to identify that defense. You got to be unlike Keith in Little League and remember the snap count. There's just a ton of stuff going on, and I think the guy has done better than expected. Just not to the pro level that we wanted. We want Tom Nalen again right now.
When you go from Joe Burrows in college to Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, Joe Flacco, it's a major change for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, thanks Facebook user for chiming in. If you want, just drop your name in the very beginning before your comment. Love to know who you are. There is a place where you can, before you join in, that you can identify yourself to StreamYard. You can do that as well. If you don't see it or don't want to, just like I said, drop your name in. Love to say hi to you as a Denver Bronco country fan. So, and a Denver Bronco Roundup fan too, hopefully. So, all right, bud. Well, I think we got center kind of coursed over. What do you got next for us, bud?
Moving on to the right guard position. You had starter Glenn Gaska last year. Started 7 games till he broke his ankle in the Cowboys game. He was having a decent season last year. Played 384 snaps, only give up 2 penalties, 2 sacks allowed. But that's the big thing coming off that ankle injury. And the other big thing is when he went down, Quinn Miners came in, and Quinn Miners looked really good.
Yeah, and I would 100% have to agree with you. When it comes to Graham Glasgow, I was hoping that he could, again, he was kind of like that Dalton Reisner. I was hoping he could step up, fill that position. Let's face it, Broncos country, we've been wanting the offensive line to be solid up and down for quite some time. And there's quite a few young faces and names that we're talking about battling for position. That says a lot. We're still in that position where we're trying to get it all figured out, right? Trying to put it all together as well, right? So, Graham Glasgow was really starting to come on, and it seemed like he was heading all the way in the right direction, especially as we come into we were coming to the end of the season, and then a terrible injury. If you got a chance to listen to him talk about it, it was two ligaments and a bone that was protruding. So it wasn't anything small, and it was. He's on his way back. He's doing actually quite well. Expected to come in for training camp, hopefully fully competing in pads. So,
and the way it happened too had to have been frustrating. On the last play of the half, you're already up big in the Cowboys game, and on a fluke little play like that,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
Denver
like
could have taken a knee and went to the locker room.
a lot of meaningless plays that we seem to have under the Vic Fangio era, and something maybe that we'll see changed in the new Nathaniel Hackett era, hopefully. So we got a long-time Rocky Mountain Sports Network fan jumping in here, man. It's Victor Muna. Victor jumping in. He says, "Russ Bus, heck yeah, baby. Is there anything better than having the Russ Bus? You know what I mean? Here in town, flipped our franchise. Let's face it.
Yeah.
I was out there. We're all looking at Aaron Rodgers as a possibility, especially as Nathaniel Hackett comes over. The funny thing is, I was doing a little bit of research for this. I was listening to another podcast, and a name came up just as a we don't need backup, and that was Cam Newton. And I remember, there was people that were saying, "Hey, bring in Cam." Once the season ended, knowing that he was a guy out there that obviously started for a Super Bowl team, you know what I mean? Not winning team, but a Super Bowl team, and
a former MVP of the league. So
former MVP of the league. There's a lot to be said, but thank goodness, I think I'm a little bit happy at jumping on top of the Russ Bus with Victor, jumping in and taking that ride. I was not a fan of Cam Newton or a lot of the other names that were kind of being floated out there as well. So
right.
Victor. Anybody who's just listening only, Victor likes to come in, and he's somewhat opinionated when it comes to some of our players. He's already named Josie Jewell as our starting LB, left bench. He's not getting him the linebacker position. He's not a Josie Jewell fan. Victor, thanks for chiming in, keeping it interesting. I appreciate it.
I'll have to remember that one.
Linebacker now stands for left bench, huh? All right. So, yeah, just devastating when it came to Graham Glasgow. The way he went down, it seemed like he was heading in the right direction. But you're right. Quinn Miners comes in, and Quinn Miners looks pretty good.
He does, and he's a mauler in the run game. Struggles a little bit like everyone else in the pass game. That is where I think Denver is the weakest right now on this whole line, is in the pass game.
Yeah. I think we had so many issues, I guess you could say, within our offense. Obviously, it never seemed like we were on, well, I'll say that outside of the first 3 games last year, it never seemed like we really got on script or on page. We had great games like Dallas and the whole 9 yards, but they would just come out of nowhere. It never seemed like we had any consistency. That's one thing that I think we're going to see change just because of what we have going on at the quarterback position. So,
when you have an OC,
Victor.
When you have an OC that tells you we are trying to throw incomplete passes in training camp last year, I mean, that's a sign right there that, in my opinion, I mean, who says that?
Yeah. I don't think that's anything that you want to come out and admit to, even if it happened to be the case, right? So,
right.
At least this competition looks a little bit closer when it comes to that draft pick type of status, because they're both third rounders. Graham Glasgow was a third rounder heading into his 7th year, been around the league a little bit. He's played actually left guard, center, and right guard positions, so he is a pretty flexible guy, at least throughout his career. Quinn Miners, obviously with only his 9 starts, but also a third-round pick, 2021. It's the perfect situation, honestly, for if Graham Glasgow gets off to a little bit of a slow start because of that injury that he needs to come back on. You do feel like you have someone like Quinn Miners who's going to be able to take that helm and be able to fill that spot.
I totally agree. I mean, in his 9 starts last year, he looked pretty good for a rookie. Coming out of a D2 school and, not playing the year before because of COVID.
Yeah. I honestly, he was one of my favorite players to watch. Maybe it's because I did play the center that didn't snap the ball at the right count. But I love watching that offensive line. I love watching those guys in the trenches when it comes
Yep.
game days. It's where the battles get won, and unfortunately, you'll see those penalties like holding a little bit sooner than when the flag is thrown and when the when the announcers are talking about it. Sometimes, if all you're doing is watching that offensive line, so it can be frustrating if you're watching your offense
Right.
time to time. But Quinn Miners was just a guy who really impressed me. Again, only heading into his second year, so it's really, man, doors wide open for him. So he has a great opportunity heading into camp again, unfortunately because of a Graham Glasgow injury. So, boy, are we down to one spot, man?
Down to one. Right tackle. And right tackle's been an issue since shit. Well, since probably Orlando Franklin, really. I mean,
Yeah,
I was probably the last real right tackle we had that was decent for this team.
yeah.
I mean,
Good old Orlando Franklin, man. He's been a few years in the on the other side of the business now in the
right.
podcast and radio business. It's been his career there is probably about as long as his career in the NFL. So it's getting to almost evenly matched. That's a long time to be waiting for a position to be solidified for our Denver Broncos.
A little off topic, but have you seen him recently? He's dropped like 120.
Oh, he is
I
unrecognizable.
mean,
If you only
yeah,
knew Orlando Franklin from when his playing days, and this gentleman walked up on you, you would never guess.
right.
You would never guess. Completely different guy. Completely different guy. Yeah. Good point, man. Have you seen this guy? It's amazing how people change, man, over time.
Yeah,
I tell you. Especially those offensive linemen, they get out of the league and decide they don't need to have a 4,000 calorie diet or whatever, 10,000 or 50,000 or whatever the heck
right.
they're eating. All of a sudden their body shape can really change. So,
Yep.
sorry, right tackle. Where we at, buddy? Who do we got?
Right
Who we got competing?
Last year Denver had Bobby Massey at right tackle. He played well, but they decided not to bring him back. They went out and picked up two guys in the offseason. They brought back Billy Turner, who had a stint with the Broncos in 2017. Played mostly interior in there at the guard position. But when he did go to Green Bay, he played he played four of the five. He didn't play center, but I mean, he played left tackle, right tackle, both guard positions, and played pretty well for Green Bay. Then you also have Tom Compton, who came over from the 49ers. He started 7 games there at right tackle for the 49ers last year. He is familiar with this zone scheme as Kyle Shanahan runs that there. So I think that's going to be a heck of a battle. The one thing that worries me a little bit is how healthy is Billy Turner. He had that knee scoped, and I've been seeing reports that he might not play at all this preseason, so that might not bode well for him. Then you also have Calvin Anderson, who made 3 starts for this team last year. They were all at left tackle, excuse me. And he played pretty well over there. 0 penalties, 0 sacks. Struggles a little bit in when he did play at right tackle, but that is a wild card, and I think that is going to be a good 3-man competition there.
Yeah, I mean it's the only position that we're really talking about. 3 guys really going after it for one spot, right?
Right.
Do you
Now
now with Massey being gone? Obviously, he was our main starter. He was our our name starter. I know that we had a couple guys cycle in and out of that position throughout the year, but 2 new guys, one guy who's been here before. Maybe I'll ask. I want to get your opinion. Who do you think is going to be leading, at least heading into this training camp?
I thought leading going in was going to be Billy Turner, but today I heard he might not play at all in this preseason, and that
Hmm.
might not bode well for him, especially if Tom Compton or Calvin Anderson, ball out in preseason.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I didn't get that information. I didn't realize he was going to possibly miss all of training camp. Billy Turner was my also one of my favorites for having that position going in there into training camp. So that being said, if he's not taking snaps with day one starters or first team starters, first day of training camp, who do you think is going to be filling that void? Between the Tom Compton and Calvin Anderson.
I
Is Tom
think Calvin Anderson is probably going to get the first run with it,
okay?
but Tom Compton, I mean, he's right there and he can fill right in if something happens.
Yeah.
Also, with Tom Compton, that I didn't mention, I think he might be a wild card in the left guard position as well.
Mm.
He can
Mm.
play on all. He can play all the positions on the O line. He started at every position, so
Yeah. The one thing that really jumped out as far as numbers, obviously Calvin Anderson, just heading into his third year, only has 5 starts. Obviously, like we said, Bobby Massey was our main starter last year. Didn't have a lot of opportunities to really take the field. Billy Turner's in his 9th year out of North Dakota State. By the way, Calvin Anderson, just to go back, he was an undrafted guy. He actually started off in New England and went to the Jets before he ended up on the Broncos
right.
roster. So Billy Turner, again, 9th year out of North Dakota State, 3rd-round pick for Miami in 2014. 68 starts in 9 years. Then you go to Tom Compton, 11th year now out of South Dakota State, 6th-round pick out of Washington in 2012. This is his 7th team, so he's certainly seen the league.
Right.
But yet he only has 44 starts in 10 years. So he hasn't been that guy who necessarily gets that starting role a year after year. It's one of the reasons I really expected Billy Turner to come in and really earn that position. Heck, he has, 24 more starts with 2 less years experience.
Right.
And now with him possibly going down, we need to start looking at, hey, does Calvin Anderson have the ability to jump in there and fill that role? Or is Tom Compton, now an 11-year vet, going to be the guy who fills that position? It's always interesting when you bring a guy in too, because that usually you're hoping that that's a guy that makes your roster, or at least that's in the mind of Denver Broncos fans and Broncos
And
country.
that's where I thought he had a leg up. He came from Green Bay. He came right along with the coaches.
Billy Turner, yeah.
Billy Turner. Yeah,
absolutely. But I'm talking about Tom Compton though too. Same thing. He's brought in. He's from the outside.
Right.
Billy Turner was obviously, to me, if anybody is a Broncos fan for a little bit of time, remembers him playing for us. Heck, I remember when he left us, and it was nothing that I wanted to see happening. It was
Right.
a guy that seemed like he was making the strides and really being that guy that maybe could fill that hole for us. And we wouldn't have to wait since Orlando Franklin for him to come back around and maybe see the field again for us. But that being said, it seems now, especially with Billy Turner coming in with an injury, maybe not playing at all through training camp and preseason. Is that the idea?
That's what I heard. He might not play all They said
So-
him and Randy Gregory.
Okay. Well, at least it's in a position where we're talking about a little bit of depth, but at the same
Right.
time, dang, it certainly does hurt, because that's a guy that I really feel, should have been that starting guy day one, and I don't know if he gets that opportunity, if he's going to be sitting out until day one. That's a big jump to take.
And I kind of fell all off season from when Green Bay released him with the medical injury. Denver not taking a right tackle again, and then they picked him up right after the draft, I thought all signs led
Yeah.
right to him. I mean, it fell right in place.
Yeah, it always hurts when these injuries. Sometimes they, heck, I think we're getting used to it too often within the confines of Major League sports, where these guys are out for a 6-month injury and come back in 4. They're out for a 3-month
Yeah,
injury and they come back in 2. They're out for a 6-week injury and they come back in 4 weeks. You know what I mean? It's just one of
right.
those things where we have those expectations that these guys are always going to be ahead of schedule and they're always going to be able to take the field for us. And it sounds like, unfortunately, for Billy Turner, it's the opposite case. It's one of those scenarios where things aren't coming along as quickly as we had hoped, or I imagine this coaching staff had hoped, for him to be taking the field come week 1, let alone the training camp that we're hoping to be talking about in the battles as far as that is concerned as well. So,
But that's where Tom Compton or Calvin Anderson can, grab that position and, solidify themselves there.
yeah, it'll be interesting. I just I knew of Tom Compton. I saw him on the field. I remember seeing the name here and there, obviously, as he's taken
Right.
a tour through his 7 teams. At the same time, I didn't realize he really wasn't a starter in this league. He would get 4.4 starts a year. So not really a guy that is just a plug and play type of individual. And Calvin Anderson, again, just coming into year 3, only 5 starts under his belt. It could be really interesting who comes out, for game 1 at right tackle.
Right.
Amazing, bud. Well, man, what a breakdown. I'm just going to take just a quick break, bud. We're just going to talk a little bit about Rocky Mountain Sports Network. It's a growing media company that aims to provide a lot of great content for all sports, all along the Rocky Mountain front. We have Mile High Horsepower with J-Dub. Mile High Horsepower took a little bit of a break, even though it was like episode 2. But I do not mind whatsoever because it was right during the Stanley Cup Finals. It was game 5, was it? Yeah, that we had it scheduled for. So J-Dub took a back seat to the now the Stanley Cup champions, and I expect him to be back now this Friday with another great show. The breakdown with Matt Staffiero will be coming back. Real Dingers, which of course is a Major League Baseball podcast centered around the Rockies. X-League football. Matt Staffiero and Greg Downdo has been fantastic when it comes to X-League. Unfortunately, the Denver Rush did have an opening loss, so kind of went down a little bit hard. But let's see if they can bounce back. And there's all this content and tons more. If you jump over on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network Facebook page, you can get links to, the Denver Bronco Roundup and the Breakdown and Real Dingers and X-League football and Mile High Horsepower and you name it. So, man, like I said, we're going to be jumping around a little bit off our agenda. We were going to be covering some tight ends and some wideouts. Might be pushing that down to the episode 4 and 5 or 4, whatever it happens to be. But I just want to get into a little bit about our training camp breakouts, Bad. When it comes to rookies, we had another fantastic draft class. If you look at this up and down the board, a lot of people had us rated A minus, B plus. Boy, who do you expect when it comes to rookies to really jump off the page when it comes to training camp, coming into training camp, buddy?
With them not having a first-round pick, I think the guy out of Oklahoma, I think he could be an impact player, especially not knowing what Chubb and Gregory's status are. They're both coming off injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I think that right there is your guy.
Is your guy? Yeah. I mean, honestly, I look at this draft class and it's fantastic. We have guys that really could, have already stirred a little bit of noise, I guess you could say, when it came to mini camps and rookie mini camps and OTAs. So We have Greg Dulcich, obviously tight end, UCLA. We have Nick Benito, Damari Mathis at the cornerback, a name that's being kind of thrown around and we'll be probably talking about when it comes to some of the safety or the defensive side of the ball, Delar and Turner Yell. I'm going to murder this name, man. Igioma Uwazurkie. I don't know. I'm even trying to.
that was close enough.
That was close enough. All right, I got a pass. I got a Jody stamp of approval. Thanks, buddy. Nose tackle. Obviously, we have Montrell Washington, wide receiver.
I think that's your wild card right there. He might be a wild card.
Kick returner and punt returner as well. Our center competitor at Luke Wattenberg. We also have Matt Henningsen and Farian Hicks, which is another nickelbacker, which a lot of people are I guess, again, just a place where we have a ton of depth. Depth. So we have a couple of people chiming in. We might just back up just a little bit. So keep an eye on Compton to make a rise here. He's got familiarity with the O-line coach. He's got experience at guard and right tackle. He's got familiarity with the offensive scheme. Anderson is brand new to it. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, a 10-year guy that comes from, again, a similar scheme. That's one of the reasons they brought him in.
Right.
Compton does have a lot of things going for him. It's not always bad to be a veteran. It would be nice to see a few more starts underneath his belt, in my opinion, but especially with Billy Turner going down. It very well could be his position to lose, as you have a guy that's really, really new to the position, or new to the NFL, trying to fill that position as well. So I'm going to just segue for a little bit. So breaking news, Rocky Mountain Sports Network has a new show that's coming soon on Sundays, Elevation 5280 Sports. And that sounds awesome, bud. So
yeah, it does.
Elevation 5280 Sports. Look for that on Rocky Mountain Sports Network. Just another one of those, again, great coverage that we're getting from top to bottom, from everything all up and down the Rocky Mountain front. So even, me all the way up here in Montana, man, I'm trying to cover it, at the far end of the Rocky Mountain front for us. You know what I mean? We got friends all the way down to Arizona, New Mexico, so they're taking care of that end, and we got Colorado right in the middle. So, all right, bud. So lots of guys. So who's your? I'm sorry, you'll have to remind me. Your rookie to jump off the page is
Nick Benito.
Nick Benito, because of we got some Randy Gregory that's obviously going to be down. He's going to have to be out, not be able to take over in that position. And it's going to be kind of exciting. Obviously, Nick Chubb's going to be pushed a little bit too. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that position. Boy, I think I'm going to go exactly where you went and kind of alluded to when I went in this list. And I think that's going to be Montrell Washington. I think he could be dynamic not only as a returner, but I think he could possibly push for some time, just depending upon how things go with KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, in that position in the slot. He is pretty dynamic, even when talked about during a lot of these different press conferences that we're talking about. They talked about how is he being used, especially as he's brand new and he's a rookie and stuff like that. And they're like, oh boy, he can take the top off of defense. You know what I mean? He's a speed guy. He just can create mismatches as far as that is concerned. So if you're already, I know that he's going to have to learn a lot. There's a lot of scheme that he's going to have to learn, and that was kind of the basis of these comments, right? But at the same time, if you have a guy that's got the speed, that can take the top off, it's also a guy that, is obviously dynamic in that kick return and that punt return, and heaven forbid we get an opportunity to get on the ball when he's slotted out as wide receiver as well.
Yeah, we haven't had an electric kick returner since probably Trendon Holiday, so I mean, it's very much welcome.
Yeah, my days, I go back to the days when Dante Hall used to just eat us up, and I just wanted a returner of any sort, any kind. You know what I mean? I just wanted somebody who was dynamic and electric, and could change a team, change a game, and the feel of a game, and the whole mindset of a team just by one return. It's been a while since we've had that. Montreal Washington could be that guy. I 100% agree, though. Nick Bonito is a beast. If you didn't get a chance to see him in college, he was one heck of a pickup in the second round. A lot of people didn't even have him slated for the second round, so great pickup again by George Payton, and I think that's going to be definitely a position that we could see again, just a guy just jump off the page because of what the opportunity that is in front of him, especially with Randy Gregory kind of sitting back. Only other one, like I said, a couple of them. Gray Dulcich, when he's back and he's healthy, I know that he was a little nicked up. He was held out at the end of OTAs. OTAs. I'm sorry. So look forward to seeing him come back. Again, a lot of talk about DeLaren Turner-Yell. I just kind of want to see that all the way across the back of his pads as well. I love that hyphenated Turner-Yell. He's been obviously a guy that's been kind of turning some heads as well. I really like Damari Mathis as well. It could be a pretty interesting guy to see hit the field at cornerback. I don't know how much opportunity he'll get. And then again, Luke Wattenberg kind of pushing Lloyd Cushenberry. It's nice when you're talking about all these guys from your draft this year that are actually pertinent to the roster, and we haven't even hit training camp as of yet. So fantastic. So let's see what else we got going on. We got a starting kick returner right there. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, to draft someone with that skill set in the 5th round, I mean, they had him pegged for that from the beginning, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that where we've tried to take a chance on a guy that maybe could be a returner for us in the past, whether it be wide receiver or corner or something like that can go back for us. Hopefully this is a little bit more specified. It sure seems like it is, and they have a guy that can go back there and, again, be electric. Thanks, Matt, for tuning in. Appreciate you, man. He also tunes in and says that Greg Dulcich will be the superstar of this class.
And that's been your guy from the beginning, hasn't it, Keith?
Well,
you
it was
him out of college, didn't you?
Well, beginning of the year, I was just kind of trying to prepare myself to, let's say, who's looking good on the field. In the first game I got to see here was a UCLA game. Not that UCLA is a fantastic team and has been lighting it up as of the last couple of years, but I tuned in, and Dulcich just jumped off the page, man. He was everything for them. So, I mean, when I'm trying to figure out guys, I'm taking, limited notes, again, who's the one or two guys that are really jumping off? And that was the first guy I wrote down. So, for him to end up on the Denver Broncos of all things was kind of a fluke for me. I mean, I love it. I love the fact that I got to see him more at a college level before he became a Denver Bronco, and I recognize that. But he's as they said in the press conference, he looks every bit of an NFL tight end.
Do you see some Julius Thomas in him?
Yeah, a little bit of Julius Thomas. That would be a great, especially a Bronco to kind of compare him to. He's got that bigger body frame. He's faster than you recognize. He really fights for the ball when it comes his direction. Yeah. He doesn't give up on the ball. You know what I mean? As well. He's just a guy that is a great competitor. Obviously has a great energy and spirit about him as well. Everyone's kind of fallen in love with him there and at UC Health Training Center, and it'll be interesting to see what this guy does. I think you're 100% gonna see maybe a competition here that I really didn't expect, especially as Albert O was one of my favorites all last year. So
whether Dulcich starts or not, I mean, he's going to get playing time, and I think he's going to be a big contributor.
Hey, we got J-Dub that's going to jump in here for a question for you, bud. You ready?
Yep.
All right. He's wondering, does the Avalanche and Mammoth winning their championships put a strain on the Broncos to win their league Super Bowl? So the NFL Super Bowl. Do you think they had to?
Mm, I don't know about year one, but bringing in Russell Wilson and what you're going to have to pay him, they're expecting big things. So,
Yeah.
and
Needless to
I'm
say, there's
expecting big
expectations,
things.
right? Yeah.
I,
I think
I
Broncos
see
country
a
is expecting it. Big
right.
things, right?
I see a Super Bowl within the next 3 years.
Okay. Very good. Maybe not year one, but within the next 3 years. There, I, from an outside perspective, being all the way up here in Montana, I don't know how much the Mammoth bring that heat, but I can tell you, having the Avalanche win theirs, there is something to be said about being so close and now having Russell Wilson in the building. About putting pressure on for this year. There's a lot of expectations, and I think J-Dub, I think you have a really good point there that there might be a little bit more pressure than we would have had for the Broncos to win a Super Bowl this year if the Avalanche and the Mammoth both wouldn't have come through with championships. That's I know from my perspective, not sure about the Mammoth, but that the Avalanche, I can see that turning that city into a place where, hey, this is the expectation now. This is what we want. This is what we expect. This is we've put all the pieces together,
Right.
right? So, yeah, good point, J Dub. There might be a little bit of outside pressure from the fan base and the like upon the Broncos, like we hadn't seen in multiple years, not since probably Manning was walking the field rather than the hallways. So.
Yep. They've been saying this team was a quarterback away. Well, let's find out.
Wow. So Matt's jumping in. He has his little perspective on Greg Dulcich, and he says he's a George Kittle clone who needs to improve the blocking ability. Yeah, I mean, I think George Kittle has, at least at this point, maybe a little bit more speed down the field. But yeah, I think that's a pretty close comparison too. Like I said, I think the body type reminds me a little bit more of that Julius Thomas type of body type. Uh, Maybe he puts on a little bit smaller set of pads and looks a little bit different. But
Right.
at least at this point, that's I think that's a good comparison. He does have that fight though that George Kittle has. So he does have that guy that's not going to give up on a play, that fights for the extra yard, fights for the ball, kind of like I was saying. So George Kittle is one of those guys that he's pushing it on every single play. It doesn't matter if it's 2 minutes into the first quarter and it's 2nd and 7 and he's at 6 yards. He's still going to try to fight to get that extra yard, and
Right.
you know what I mean, and get that first down. So I do see some comparisons as far as that's concerned.
Well,
What do
that's a
you
great
think?
comparison. That's a great comparison. And if he can live up to it, George Kittle, all the more better for this team.
J Dub's speaking in again. He says he has to start with year one for Russell Wilson. If it doesn't, there will be a lot of skepticism. Yeah, I think it really depends on where we end up. I mean, if we end up missing the playoffs and this year one altogether, and we just don't even look like we're competitive, in the AFC West or towards a wild or even a wild card playoff spot, and you've brought in Russell Wilson in, yeah, then there's a lot of skepticism that comes out of that. If you lose the AFC Championship, I think there's a lot of things that people would be still very, very happy about and be willing to build off of, like you said, expecting that maybe we get a Super Bowl in the next year or two after that. Jody, what is your thought on that? Did you think it needs to be year one, and where does this team need to finish for the Denver and Colorado community to feel like this is at least okay, if not good?
I think they need to come out of the gate on fire. I mean, the schedule set up, it's a lighter schedule in the first half of the season, really tough in the back end. If you don't see a 6-1, 5-2 start out of the gate, I think you're going to hear a lot of fans already complaining. Why did we bring in this unknown coach? Why didn't we go get the veteran from Dallas in Dan Quinn? What is Russell Wilson an aging quarterback? Was it worth trading away all those picks?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting season to see how it plays out. Like you said, it'd like be good to get that initial fast start, come out of the gates, put all the naysayers to bed, and start being able to have a little bit of time to kind of glide in case we hit a stumble or two with a loss. Um, Man, I tell you what, this is going to be, whether it be the AFC West, whether it be the AFC in general, it is not an easy path, and
No.
I expect it to be a battle throughout this entire season. It could be one of those years where you see, teams that are sitting in the AFC from first to third flip flop all around from week to week to week to week to week.
Right.
We used to see that all the time back in the day. We didn't see runaway teams. It seemed like there was 2 to 3 teams that were always in it. Matt feels that we need to get a playoff berth. That quiets the Colorado and Denver faithful to a point where we have satisfaction or happiness. So, Nate Myers. Nate Myers is chiming in. Hey Nate, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. With Peyton's pursuit of picks for next year, who do you see as tradeaway candidates? You mind if we hold that for just a second, Jody? And we'll get through just a little bit more of this. And Jody, if Nate, if you hang on, I promise we're going to get to that. So, and one last one, Matt Staffiero blowing up our comment board. He says, I'm just impressed. Maybe you should read this for me. I'm just impressed with Mr. K. 3 championship teams, 1 year, Rams, Mammoth, and Avalanche. I mean, there's a lot of amazing businessmen out there. There's not a lot of amazing businessmen in sports who are winning championships across multiple, leagues and different sports and the whole 9 yards. Hey, you're absolutely right. Hats off. It is an impressive feat. I don't know if there's anything out there quite like that from an overall owner standpoint. So, man, after rookies, man, we got a lot of old players on this team as well. From our new veteran Russell Wilson to our longest tenured Bronco Brandon McManus. Lots of different guys on the roster. Who do you think, with all the new coaches, with all the new scheme, with a new quarterback coming in, everything, I mean, top to bottom, I don't care, ownership if you want to throw it in there, but with everything going on, who's that veteran who's going to jump off the page, or who's going to be, who you would put a bet on being a camp star this season?
I think that's 2 guys. I think DJ Jones on the D line, and I think Josie Jewell is going to have a good comeback season. Before his injury, he was probably Denver's best linebacker. I mean, he was really balling out, and he was making big time plays. Those are 2 veterans that have been here more than a couple years or been in the league more than a couple years that I see really making an impact for this team.
Yeah, those are, Josie Jewell obviously coming back off that injury. He was looking like he was coming into his own. The one thing I do like about this whole, it seems like both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball, is we're talking about speed all over the place. And I think that actually plays into the idea behind it, like a Josie Jewell, like you kind of speak of. I think it plays to his strengths, right? Be able to kind of get around on the field and play a little bit looser within the scheme, rather than what seemed like a very conservative, very tight scheme that we were sucked into. It seemed like last year, and I know this is kind of getting away from maybe Josie Jewell's position at linebacker, inside linebacker, but at the same time, it seemed like we were very, very reluctant to get out of our zone areas, i.e. we wouldn't follow receivers.
Right.
properly into the next zone area, and we just saw a lot of things fall in. I think that's some of the things that we'll see different. Again, I think we're going to be faster, and they talk a lot about just disguising what's going on both sides of the ball. So I think that's
And they're going to make plays, not this bend don't break.
yes, looking to make plays rather than playing the conservative side
Yeah.
that we saw within a Vic Fangio defense. Again, like you said, let them run 89 yards and stop them on the 11 and make them kick a field goal. So
exactly.
that was our mindset. One that really jumps off the page for me, and I'm hoping that he comes back and he comes back strong, is Michael Ojemudia. Here's a guy that's been around for a few years. Really seemed like he was coming into his own. Unfortunately, went down with an injury, but man, the chatter around camp has certainly been about this guy and what he's been able to do and how good he's looked playing in that backfield. So, I think we have a lot of good prospects when it comes to veterans that could come off. DJ Jones is a guy I absolutely loved. If you ever listen to that guy talk, after he's done with his playing career, he's probably got a great career as a motivational speaker. I think I would run through fire and brick walls with that guy if he was right alongside me. He's a guy that I'm excited to see take that nose tackle position. I think the days of Mike Purcell kind of being the incumbent there are way in the past. And again, I think
I agree with that.
That's maybe something that we hit again a little bit in the next few weeks right before training camp hits as far as all the positions go. But DJ Jones is a whole different player, and I think we'll be pretty happy once he hits out there. So, all right, bud. We've went through all these different positions. As far as the offensive line is concerned, maybe we should get back to Nate, let him get him in on his answer. Who do you think could be on the trading block come this offseason or even at the first few weeks of regular season, I guess, if need be, in order to get George Payton all his picks back that he's traded away?
I think there's a couple guys. Well, I've been saying it for a while. I think Dalton Reisner is a massive trade candidate. The way he struggled the last couple of years, and with Moody stepping up, if they decide to put Tom Compton there, I mean, you can fill that position, try to get some trade value there. Him and a Mike Purcell.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 2-down lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Denver's going to be in nickel and dime probably 60% of the time. And I think a lot of the times you're only going to see 2 down linemen, like a DJ Jones and Draymond Jones, or some combination of just 2.
Yeah. Some upfront pairing that makes him almost dismissible. Well, I went out and I picked my one name, and it was the one name that it came to me, and it was the same guy that came to you, buddy. I think Dalton Reisner's days are numbered here in Denver, unfortunately. I know a lot of people really kind of hoping for this guy to be a long-term product, somebody that could take the field. I know he has some local ties, if I remember correctly, so everyone was kind of pulling for him. So, but here's a guy that's heading into his 4th year on a 4-year contract. You have all these different positions at left guard. You had, like you said, you have a Tom Compton that could come in. Billy Turner's played left guard. Moody obviously is the guy who's pushing him in that position. I mean, Glasgow could probably
right? Yeah,
could jump over there if you needed to. Quinn Miners has been talking about how he's trying to train in every single position, and that's the idea. So when you look at all the signs, he's about a $2.5-3 million contract, if I remember correctly. So if he's traded away, that's a great value for someone who is going to get a guy who's been a starting offensive lineman in the NFL. Do what you wish, whether you want to just keep him on that 1 year or whether you want to re-sign him to something longer, but at $3 million for a starting left guard in the NFL, that's a pretty good value, and could command a fairly decent trade value in return.
I have a wild card guy that I just thought of. What do you think of Malik Reed? I mean, you've got Chubb and Randy Gregory. You've got Nick Bonito. You've got Cooper, and they're working Browning there. I mean, there's 5 guys right there. What do you think about Malik Reed?
I'd had to look at his contract is the only thing I'd have to look at. I don't know what he's kind of contract he's on. I can't imagine it's anything big.
Right.
But I think we just actually, if I remember right, we just re-signed him this offseason. In fact, I almost guarantee we re-signed him this offseason. So if that be the case, I don't know if we see a guy that is re-signed in the offseason and traded away. I believe this might be Matt, but it's just coming in as Rocky Mountain Sports Network. So we got Dalton Reisner, Bradley Chubb, and Baron Browning. Wow, I wouldn't know if I'd put Baron Browning on that list. I'm not sure where that information's coming from, but just from everything I've seen, a lot of people have been really happy with him in camp, from players to coaches alike. But Bradley Chubb is a guy, again, we talk about old regimes and turning that over and what we've kind of seen.
Right.
We see a guy that maybe hasn't lived up. Well, I think it's safe to say where we took him in the draft, I don't know if he's lived up to that position that he was taken within.
And it doesn't help that Josh Allen, I mean, he was right there on the board. And,
yeah, bring that up, I think, on every episode. But I think you are bent about Josh Allen not getting taken when Bradley Chubb was on.
Actually, I was that night. I wanted them to take Quentin Nelson, the guard.
Oh yeah. When end up going to the Colts, right? Yeah, yep, yeah. I agree with you. I was hoping for some offensive line help as well, if I remember correctly. Right. And I know he was high up on my board. I don't know if I was cheering for him necessarily in that position, but boy, for as excited as everybody was about the pairing of Chubb and Von Miller, it never really came to fruition. And really, at this point, we're looking for Chubb, who is supposedly coming in healthier than he's been in years, feeling better, looking great. To take the field and maybe change, Broncos country outlook, but there's also a really good point, or a really good possibility, as someone pointed out here, that he's on the trading block as well. So Matt thinks that a surprise would be KJ Hamler. Hey, what were we just talking about with Montrell Washington? Maybe being able to step up into that position. KJ Hamler, yeah, that could be one out there. I just don't know what the market for him would be as a wide receiver. He really hasn't had that much time on the field. It would really be someone taking a chance, and I don't know how much return you get for someone taking a chance on someone like KJ Hamler.
Especially a second round. You used a second round pick on him, so. Yeah,
exactly.
Coming off the ACL injury.
I don't think Reed will. I think Reed will end up being released, according to Matt. He was a restricted free agent. So, man,
that's definitely going to be one to watch, I think, because when Chubb went down or when they traded Vaughn, Reed was the guy. He was a starter. Yeah. He had the most sacks last year for this team, and he was probably your best. He was your best pass rusher last year. So
yeah. What a fall from grace if all of a sudden we go from a leading pass rusher and sack artist to released from the team. That would be a really interesting one. We talked about this a little bit in last episode, and certainly as we kind of wind up this episode as well. Hey, there's going to be a lot of names, I think, this year that Broncos country are going to be surprised that either A, get released, like Matt's pointing out, or B, we just see hit the trading block as we try to get back some draft capital from the Russell Wilson trade. So don't be too upset if you see some names you love out there on the trading block or on the streets. It's just the way the business is, and believe me, we have a deep roster. Actually, just to that point, before we get off, I just wanted to, if I can scramble through my podcast notes. It's deep, buddy. I do a lot of work for everybody here, so hopefully you guys enjoy this. We have a 53-man roster, obviously, that we'll have to get down to at some point. Last year, we kept 23 offensive players. Currently, on our roster, we have 34 offensive players. So now, don't get me wrong. There's some guys that most people probably haven't even heard of, and no disrespect, but like a Jalen Virgil, who's a wide receiver, kind of comes to mind, or maybe a Caden Davis at wide receiver. That not a lot of people are going to be overly disappointed if they don't meet the team. Again, these are probably on the outside edges, but at the same time, there's a lot of big names that we know and Broncos country love that will. Probably again. We'll see how it all plays out. But there's only so many spots on this roster. There's only 16 players that you can put on your practice squad. So there's only so much room, and we might not see all our favorite players carry on. So, all right, bud. I think there's only one thing really left to do. I know this has run a little bit long, especially for me and you, because we restarted. But we had some technical difficulties and had to get everyone caught up and kind of get everyone going. So we appreciate everyone jumping in. I think we only have our poll left. Does that sound about right, buddy? Is that what you see on our agenda? I think so, but I think he's frozen as well. So, all right, let's get this started.
Get something to say? Say it!
I got something to say.
You got something you want to say to me?
I'm sorry. Did you say something?
What did you say?
All right, buddy. You with me?
I'm with you.
All right, man. You froze on me for a second, man. So visually, you were like, you should have seen your face. We were all laughing. It was fantastic. No, I'm just kidding. All the comments was just laugh out loud.
Laugh out loud.
Crying tears, the whole 9 yards. It was great. Yeah. So I put it out on the Denver Bronco Roundup, shared it out to Rocky Mountain Sports Network and all around Denver Bronco country, so maybe you saw it. Put a poll out. I said, out of the last 3 years consistent, Russell Wilson has thrown to a 1,000-yard receiver. So, who's our 1,000-yard receiver or receivers this year? Most people, I'll be honest, I was surprised how many people thought we would have multiple 1,000-yard receivers. We did have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 7 or 6 choices that you could go from. I had 7 people say all of these people will get 1,000 yards. So I'm really excited that Broncos country is thinking that Russell Wilson is going to take the AFC West by storm, have 6 1,000-yard receivers. But maybe we're just a little bit excited about that one, and that's fine. I don't know how to start this, man. How do you want to start this? What do you want to know? Should we go bottom up? Should we go top down? We'll go top down.
Top down. All
right, man. Who would you expect got 47% of the vote as being a 1,000-yard receiver?
This is my pick as well. I think it's Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton coming in, our top guy, our wide receiver one. Though, and I'll pull it up. I think I did have a great commenter that had a reason why maybe not Cortland Sutton number one. Maybe I'll grab that here in a second. So number 2 on our list, I'll just start going down. Well, no, I'll let you continue. I'll tell you what. Out of the 6 guys I had listed, which were wide receivers or tight ends, only 4 of the 6 got votes. 2 guys didn't get a vote for a 1,000-yard receiver. So, who came in second behind Mr. Cortland Sutton?
I'm going to say Jerry Jeudy.
It was a close race, but Jerry Jeudy came in third in our poll with 12 votes. With 19% overall. So, Jerry Jeudy came in third place. Patrick did come in second. He got 27% of the votes. And KJ Hamler did come in with just shy of 5% of the overall votes as a 1,000-yard receiver. The thing that was interesting, outside of our 7 people who thought all of our guys, including Alberto and Greg Dulcich, would get 1,000 yards, we did have one guy that said A, B, and C, and E or F, whoever is the starter. So again, he's bullish on what we get done. How about this though? If we had, let's see here, I'm trying to figure out how many of these are. Let's see, 7, 13, 14, 15 people chose 2 wide receivers to go over 1,000 yards. So, who's going? If you had to choose the 2 wide receivers going over 1,000 yards, which 2 wide receivers both go over 1,000 yards on the Denver Broncos? Who came in first? This was tight for first place.
I'm going to say Sutton and Judy.
Sutton and Judy came in second by 1 vote. Sutton and Judy came in second by 1 vote to Patrick and Sutton. So close. Did get also Sutton and Hamler and Patrick and Judy getting a little bit of love on the side, but the main race was really either Patrick or Sutton and Judy. What do you think? Do you think we have 1,000? Do we think you have 2 1,000?
I think Sutton and Judy.
You think Sutton and Judy can both pull it down?
I think Tim Patrick will be in that 700-800 yard range.
Okay. So let me see if I can just pull up this comment here real quick. I'm just going to give me just 1 second. What do you think, while I pull this up, Sutton and Judy, what do you think will be the biggest reason that Judy takes that jump here in this offense to produce 1,000 yards?
Route running. I mean, he's been praised forever on his route running. And last year when he came, I didn't notice the drops as much last year. Route running, I think, is going to be the big thing. He can get separation, and he can hit those middle 15, 20-yard passes and take them. He still has the speed, too.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that, honestly, that he can put last year behind him, that he can put drops behind him, even some of this offseason that he's kind of went through, he can put behind him. I know that it looks like everything's going quite well. Russell Wilson looks like he's a friend and a great teammate, I guess you could say, to Jerry Jeudy.
Right.
It's that type of guy, we talk about the influence that Russell Wilson has. It's not just the fact that he throws to 1,000-yard receivers or that he has the ability to extend plays or any of that. He's just the type of person that he is, and the way that he can kind of put his arms around, seems like just about any player on that roster and make them feel like he's their best friend. And
a true leader.
A true leader, yeah. Great way to put it. True leader. And that's really, you hear about that from player after player after player. I kind of feel bad because I know a lot of them actually really like Drew Lock, and you can kind of see, especially those guys that played with Drew or maybe played with Teddy, and maybe had feelings for them as well as being a great teammate, that they're trying to cushion things as they're talking about how great of a leader Russell Wilson is on the field, in the locker room, every day, every minute, texting them. It doesn't matter. It seems like the guy's all over the place.
Right.
And I think some of these guys who especially had to deal with, what we had at a leadership position in Drew Lock or Joe Flacco or Teddy Bridgewater or Case Keenum or any of these names that really just aren't that elite leadership type of person, they're loving what's coming through with Russell Wilson. And I think that's going to help people and players that need just a little bit more, a little bit more leadership, a little bit more, have a little bit more camaraderie between you and your fellow teammate like that.
And he'll hold people accountable. I mean, he will hold himself accountable, and he will hold other people accountable. I think that's going to be huge.
I wish I still had the comment. I swear I thought I took a picture of it so that I could have it here because I wanted to mention the guy that made the comment. But this is what I'll say last in closing when it comes to 1,000-yard receivers. The reason he didn't think that Sutton was going to be necessarily hit 1,000 yards was this: he's expecting that Sutton gets that CB1, right? That shutdown corner,
Right.
every single play, and he just thinks because of that. That Patrick and that Judy would have a much better opportunity to being those 1,000-yard receivers. That's who he chose as being his 1,000-yard receivers, his 2,000-yard receivers. Not that he thought that Sutton was going to have a bad year just because of everything that he had going against him at that time. You know what I mean? The coverage.
One reason that I picked Sutton was Russell extends plays, and he likes to throw the ball deep. He's got a great drop it in the bucket. Sutton is a go up and get the ball type of guy, and that's where I think he's going to thrive this year.
Yeah, it will be kind of interesting. You know, you think about who Russell did throw to, and you know, DK Metcalf made a pretty good leaving out of snatching the balls, over the top of guys and ripping it away from guys and just get it in my area. And you see that a little bit with both Sutton and with Patrick, in my opinion. It'll be interesting to see those guys going up and grabbing those balls from Russell Wilson this year. So,
yeah, can't wait.
Well, but can't wait. Hey, I don't know, man. I'm almost out of breath. I feel like it was a fantastic show, man. I really appreciate everyone jumping in, whether it be Matt or Nate or J-Dub, everyone who tuned in, everyone who's listening. You know, we're available across multiple platforms too. So don't forget, you can jump over, whether it be on Rocky Mountain Sports Network, Denver Bronco Roundup, whether it be on Instagram or YouTube or Twitter. You can find us all over the place, whether it be personal or our professional pages. So go out there, take a look, like, follow, subscribe. Make sure that you're setting your reminders so you're tuned in to the Denver Bronco Roundup every Tuesday at 6:30. So last thing, I'll just come in there. I think I'm starting a new tradition. Last week we talked about the Mile High Salute and a little bit of Denver Bronco trivia. Mentioned that it wasn't supposed to be named the Denver Bronco, the Mile High Salute. It was the No Limit Soldiers, according to Terrell Davis. So I figured I'd just wrap up with one little piece of trivia, and I want to see if you know this one, buddy. A Knoxville, Tennessee zoo wanted to honor Peyton Manning and named a zoo animal after him. Do you know what zoo animal was named after Peyton Manning?
I do not. I'll take a wild guess. A giraffe.
Give me you nailed it, buddy. Don't you love that? It's like, are you 100% honoring him, or are you also taking a little bit of a crack at him?
A crack at him.
Well, Jody, you're breaking out just a little bit, but it's fantastic. I thought that was hilarious. What a better way to honor a guy to also do a little roast at the same time, I guess is the best way to put it. So, wow, man. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up, buddy. I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you being my co-host. Appreciate you living through my technical difficulties and having to restart. And, of course, appreciate all our viewers, listeners, likers, subscribers. Thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you guys a ton.
Great show.
How about you, buddy? All right. Little Mile High Salute, little No Limit Soldiers.
Soldiers.
I'll go check out my pet giraffe. And until next time, thanks, Broncos Country. Appreciate it.